Get ready for an incredible conversation with my next guest, Dr. David Stout. His story is one of resilience, determination, and breaking through barriers. Imagine going from being a mentor to becoming the college president, all while navigating social anxiety. Dr. Stout doesn't just talk about overcoming challenges, he lives it. Now he's using his experience to help others push past their own obstacles and reach their full potential. If you take away even one powerful nugget from this episode, I encourage you to share it. Let's spread the inspiration globally. You can watch this episode on the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel, stream it on all major podcast platforms, and stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at todayisthedayliveit.com to stay updated on all things Changemakers. A huge thank you to the listeners from 864 cities worldwide. We see you, we appreciate you, and we're so grateful for your support. Keep sharing the episodes that resonate with you, because together we are creating a global ripple effect of change. Now let's dive into this inspirational and empowering conversation with Dr. David Stout. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and as I say every single episode, I interview the changemakers, the inspirers, and those who are just disrupting the status quo in the most positive and best way possible. And today I have David Stout with me. Hi, David. How are you?
Hi, Jody. Thanks so much for inviting me.
I am so happy to have you on. I got to hear a little bit of your story one time when we were chatting, and I was like, okay, he's a perfect guest for the podcast. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for asking me on, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you.
No problem. I'm so happy you are. But before we get started, as I do every time, I read the bios, although I will not read your entire bio because it is incredible and amazing, but I don't want to give too much away. So I'm going to read some of what you sent me. So David earned a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology at Stockton University, a master's degree in psychology counseling at Monmouth University, and a PhD in health psychology and behavioral medicine at North Central University. Prior to Dr. Stout's selection as Brookdale Community College's 7th president, he served in various roles at Brookdale for over 25 years, including vice president for student success, dean of the Freehold campus, professor of psychology and human services, and counselor. And as vice president for student success, he oversaw all student services offices, including counseling services. During his tenure as professor and department chair of psychology and human services, Dr. Stout mentored many hundreds of future counselors and social workers and developed the college's pre-social work program. It goes on and on and on, but I will mention just a few other really quick things here, is that during his time, Dr. Stout also taught psychology. Research publications include articles on opioid dependence and workplace abuse, which is so important. Served as a commissioner-appointed member of the Monmouth County Mental Health Board and Monmouth County Human Services Needs Assessment Steering Committee. And he serves as a member of the Economic Mobility Committee of the New Jersey Community College President's Council, that's a mouthful, and NJ Jobs and Social Justice Ad Hoc Committees of the New Jersey President's Council. Again, I could still go on, but I'm so happy to have you here. So much to your story, so I'm looking forward to sharing it with everyone.
Thanks, Jody. That's the problem with academics' bios. They go on and on and on and on.
No, but it's so important, and there was so much more I wanted to share in there, but I know we'll get to a lot of it too in talking about, what you've done with your career. So let's start where I usually start, and that's where I talk to everybody and ask you, so tell me where you grew up, what kind of childhood you had. And I ask this question because I always love to share that where we start and where we develop to places we never thought we could go. So I'm going to let you take it away with that.
Thanks, Jody. So I was actually born and raised in Monmouth County, New Jersey. I was born in Neptune and raised in Wall Township, in the West Belmar section of Wall Township, which placed me squarely in the lower middle class environment neighborhoods of Wall Township. I have an older brother. We grew up together, basically on the streets of West Belmar. Great place to grow up, right on the Jersey Shore. So I had so much privilege in growing up. Didn't realize the lack of privilege I had in certain areas, not until much later on in life. I have a younger sister who was born when I turned 18. Mom and dad evidently decided they didn't want to be in the home alone together as my brother and I were going off to college. My little sister, who is 18 years younger than me, she's now a vet. So
Oh, wow.
incredible. So as I said, grew up in Wall Township. I didn't go far. I went to Stockton University in South Jersey. Came back home. Lived in Brick Township for a little bit, and then went to Monmouth University for my master's degree, as you stated in the bio. Around that time, I got my job at Brookdale as a tutor. I'm sure we're going to go into some more of the details around that, so I won't give away too much. But then fell in love with the students and the environment here at Brookdale Community College, and decided that while I was really studying to be a psychological counselor, I wanted to stay here and work within the academic environment at Brookdale. And as you can see, obviously, that's been a lifelong commitment. I've been here now for 28 years at the college. And as you said in the bio, rising through different ranks at the college to land here in this seat as the president of the college.
And incredible, incredible, and just so amazed. But let's talk about the rising through the college, right? So when you got out of school, what was your main focus when you got out of college over at Stockton?
So right out of Stockton, as I mentioned, I came from a lower middle class home. Money was always really kind of tight, and so money was very much of a focus for me. So I worked my way through college. I was a shift manager at a Pizza Hut locally, when I just wanted to be a psychological counselor right out of college. So I needed the money to pay for my master's degree program that I was going through at Monmouth University at that time. So I knew I didn't want to work in business, although I think I did a pretty decent job as a shift manager. I knew I didn't want to work in business. I knew I wanted to put my efforts in psychological counseling, and happened to be one of the waitresses who was on staff one day who tapped me and said, did you know that Brookdale Community College is hiring in the psychology department? And to be quite honest with you, I was only looking at Brookdale as an opportunity to use the college for tuition reimbursement because money was a focus. I was looking at ways for others to pay for my college experience, and was going to lean on Brookdale to pay for me to become a counselor. And then I was going to leave and move on and hang my own shingle to be a counselor.
Wow. Okay. And so then once you've gotten into Brookdale, let's talk a little bit about that.
It didn't take long after working directly with students for maybe 2 weeks. I realized that while I really loved I loved the idea of being a counselor. I really loved the environment at the college. I loved the students most of all. I loved the faculty and the staff that I worked with. So I really fell in love with the students, the staff, and the environment at the college. For those of you who haven't ever been able to visit Brookdale, it's a very peaceful environment. It's a park-like environment. So it was like Nirvana. Why would you ever want to leave? And that's what I found with many of my colleagues. They had been here for 25, 30, 40 years, it spoke volumes. So I decided at that point, I wanted to try to make as much as possible. I wanted to make my career within the college. And that meant moving on from being a tutor one day to being a counselor at the college. And I served as a counselor for 7 years. So I had that opportunity to move into a department where I was able to take what I was academically focused on and professionally focused on, which was helping people psychologically. I was able to use that and move it into the college environment, where I was able to then help students over the course of that 7 years in using my psychological counseling skills.
So what did you love most about that role?
As a counselor?
Yeah.
So when I got into the counseling department, I was one of a very few number of counselors, and this might sound a little strange, but the counselors were mostly academically focused, academic advising, career counseling, but my focus was psychological counseling. So the staff knew that, and so I was assigned a larger caseload of students with disabilities, various types of disabilities. I had half the population at the time of students with disabilities that I was counseling. And I also I found myself in a position where many of the other counselors would refer real psychological counseling cases to me. So my caseload grew to be pretty large. But I loved the opportunity to be able to help students that were dealing with adjustment related issues. They were dealing with, it might have been they were having a difficult time with their mood. They might have had anxiety issues. They may have just been upset because friends had gone on to other colleges. Maybe they missed those friends that had gone away. So I was dealing with a lot of adjustment related issues. And I loved the ability to be able to use those counseling skills, but also to keep the focus on stay in college, finish your college experience. It'll transform your life. And I was able to see many of those cases where I saw those literal transformations where I had students who came in the door who were making their money professionally through prostitution. And and then they were on the track to become professionals who would then work in the world in a professional career. And I saw that transformation for them, their family, who they were providing for, and how they were able to leverage their academic experience to change paths not only for themselves but for their entire generations behind them. That was some of the most meaningful work I ever did here at the college.
Wow, that's incredible. So I would have never thought that, right? So you had students that were, you knew that they were doing things that were interesting and challenging and difficult to hear, I'm sure, at the time as they were going through their education in order to get to the other side. What kinds of things would you say to them, and how do you, from a professional standpoint, guide them when you know that there's something there that they're doing that could be harmful to them too at the same time?
Yeah, I think what we first have to recognize is that nobody does those things because they want to, but they do what they do because they have to survive for both themselves and for their family. And I saw a lot of that as well growing up. That though I was not in any way in growing up in an impoverished environment. I had a lot of privilege in growing up, but I saw a lot of that around me where people needed to do things that ordinarily you wouldn't want to have to do because they needed to survive. And so you approach it from that angle, that people are doing these things both to support themselves as well as to support their family. And if there's anything I can do to help them to get on a different track, where they experience a greater amount of dignity for themselves as well as for their family, and their family can have pride in them. So how would I advise them? I would find out what do they aspire to be, and they may not know. They may have just a general sense of I want to work in the medical field, but I don't really know what the options are. So my role would be to help to educate them about the various kinds of roles you potentially see yourself in healthcare, or in education, or in business, or on and on with the vast world of careers. So I spent a lot of my time helping the students that I was working with to see themselves in the future in a different way. What are those things that they aspire to be? What do they want to be? What do they believe that they have the strengths and the capabilities to do? And I would also do a lot of validating of what skills they brought to the table. If we might be, I'll just use a more common example of working in what a person might see as a dead end job. They're working in a minimum wage job in an area where, they can't see themselves working in that long term, but you have developed skills in that environment. And how can we leverage those skills to help you in the next chapter? So I spend a lot of time validating the skills that had developed over the years and helping them to link that to what they were currently doing in their academic pathway, and then where do they see themselves going in the future. And I helped them to, as much as I could, as best as I could, to guide them along that pathway. And I've seen, as I said before, some incredible transformations where students graduated next to last in their class in a public school, and then when they left Brookdale, they went on to an Ivy League institution, where just that incredible transformation that would take place. And they might not have known that they had that capability if it wasn't for that coaching along the way.
That trusted person. You became that trusted person for them. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing to have that in your life. So for those people who are listening, who I have two questions on this. So to that don't have that trusted person, what advice would you give them when because they really need that? They don't have a Dr. Stout, a David Stout out there for them, but they would love that. Do you have any advice for them?
So this, I'm going to take a little bit longer of a road on this one because I recognize that trust isn't something that you can just say, today I'm going to trust, right? We all have a history of reasons for why we don't have a trusted person. So I want to validate that first, right? There are often very, very good reasons for why that foundation has been shaken. And so I think one of the first things that we can do, and I'm going to use myself in this as an example. When I was prior to going away to college, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and I had dealt with some unfortunate things related to illness as a child, which put me in a position where I was sometimes disconnected from my friend group. And my friends would all be off playing, and I wasn't able to do that because I had a physical disability that I was dealing with. And so I developed an incredible amount of social anxiety around that time. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know how to approach people. I would never speak in front of a group of people, right, at that time. So we first have to recognize there are reasons for why the trust doesn't exist. And the first thing I would do is to say, let's explore that. And that might mean that we have to go into a professional environment with a counselor to talk through what might be some of the reasons for why there are trust issues. And again, I'm not suggesting that the person is at all to blame. Sometimes there are these environmental or circumstantial reasons for why. Work through that, even if it's in terms of picking up some self-help books and reading through how to develop more trusting relationships. That is a pretty fundamental piece, a pretty foundational piece for what I'm going to say next. The second thing is, don't be afraid to approach that person that you think has the values and maybe has sort of a common mission to yourself. And it might only be one person, but if you don't take a chance in asking for that person's help, then you're going to miss all the opportunities that exist out there. So I think it takes first exploring maybe why am I hesitant to trust? Second, we do have to take that risk to ask someone to help us or to join us in whatever that journey is that we're looking for. So it's over time in relationship with a person that trust should develop. Right? It's not like there is no magic formula where we're going to say, go to the person who's your supervisor, you can trust them, or go to a colleague, you can trust them, right? It is very much you have to have that sense, that feeling that I think this is the kind of person who might share my values. This is the kind of person that might share my aspirations, and then take that chance and ask them for a deeper relationship. Now, I might have been a little bit more foundational there, Jody, than what you would want. Do you want me to build on that at all?
Well, no, that was wonderfully said. Absolutely. I think that it's just that, when people listen and they say, wow, got a lot going on in my own life, and wow, he sounds like such an incredible person to, have helped to build up others who are going through the, learning process and wanting to better themselves. I don't have that person, and I just would love to find that person. We all, mentorship, and I talk about this all the time on the show, is such an important part of everyone's life. And we don't talk a lot about it when we get to a certain age, but I think even at my age, I have tons of mentors, and I need to, because I need to learn from other people. There's so many more people that are way smarter than me, but not always do you surround yourself with them. And sometimes you don't even know how to find them, right? You're not in that place, that open space to do that. The people you're talking to were in the, at Brookdale. So they were not on the right path. They needed that extra push. Some of the people listening are on that right path. Some of the people listening may be looking for that right path. So that was the reason for that question, was to just kind of get it so that people understand there are people out there who want to help and support and be there for you. It's just finding them.
Yeah, no, I agree, Jody. And one of the things I would just add is that I say this all the time, but it's surprising how few people take me up on it. I am always offering myself in mentorship capacity to other people. And I do this at the college all the time. I'll say, if you ever have anything that you want to chat about, or you have an aspiration, you want to talk about your goals, but my door is always open. Now, I'm not always here, but figuratively speaking, you always have access to me. And it's surprising to me how few people will actually take me up on that. So one thing I would just add is that listen to those people who are offering to help, right? Because they often are legitimately offering to help you and offering to serve as a mentor. That's where a little bit of the trust factor comes in. Because we know, of course, we have to let our guard down a little bit, and some people might be offering to meet with you because they're trying to take advantage of you. I get it, right? I get that perspective. But there are people out there that you can trust and that are legitimately offering to help. And it's just finding the right person that you think you have that trusting relationship with, that can serve as a mentor for you.
So from tutor to counselor, now in the present day, president of the college. This is not a typical story. and the people listening are probably like, tutor to counselor, president of the college. There's something that happened obviously in between, that from the counseling to the president of the college. But I think the story and the message is just so vitally important. And for those people who think to themselves, what's possible and what's not possible, I don't think we ever really know what's truly possible. It's incredible. You just have to be along for the ride. So share the ride with us, that from
Sure.
counselor to president.
Sure. So I'll start back a little bit further with tutor when I first started at the college, and we have academic tutors in many of our departments. That's really where the journey started for me. And I had a series of really interesting experiences where I'm a spiritual person. I believe that doors were opened up for me at the right times. But when I was a tutor and I was studying for that degree, I knew that I wanted to be a counselor in some capacity. And it just so happened that at the time I was about to start my internship, and this is just a little bit of a crazy story, but the time I was about to start my internship, one of the counselors left. He actually went on vacation and apparently found another job and never came back again. So it left a vacancy in the counseling staff. So I went to the director of the counseling department and I said, I need an internship. And I didn't tell the truth. I'm only telling you and your listeners this. I kind of didn't tell the truth. I already had internships lined up, but that didn't matter. I really wanted to see if I could work in the counseling department.
That's awesome.
So I approached the director. I asked if I could do an internship in the office. They had never done it before, but they said they had this vacancy, so they would let me work as an intern. So in my off hours from tutoring, I would go upstairs. It was literally right upstairs from where I was. And I jumped into the counseling so that when I finished my master's degree, which is at the end of that semester, they were starting to search for the replacement for that counselor. And I was already a known entity. So I had a way in. I had a little bit of a leg up, and they accepted me into the role, and I got the job as a permanent counselor. I served in counseling for 7 years. And while I was in counseling, I realized some of the limitations in the one-on-one counseling that we were doing. I was reaching a lot of students. I had about 900 students that were my clients. They were my students that I was advising. There were a lot of limitations in that I could only spend a maximum of maybe half an hour with them. It didn't give me a lot of time to develop relationships with them. And I knew in a real counseling setting, developing that relationship is one of the core things that you have to do. So I figured, I actually felt like I had more of a connection and had the opportunity to psychoeducate more students when I was in the classroom as opposed to doing the one-on-one counseling. I had been teaching as an adjunct instructor for a few years at that point when it dawned on me that I actually felt like I had more of an impact when I was in the classroom. So I decided to put my hat in the ring for an open psychology faculty position. I had to apply a few times, but I ended up getting the role of moving into the psychology and human services department, where I served for 7 years. So I went counselor 7 years, teaching faculty for seven. And after 1 year of being in that department, the psych department, uh, the department elected me to be the chair of the department. Uh, so a little secret, becoming the chair of a department is sometimes the result of being the only person who doesn't step back when, when they're calling for who would take this voluntary role on. So I took the role, and I really started to develop over time. I'd started to develop a passion for the administrative work that I was doing in that space. And I served in a number of different capacities we don't have to get into at this time, but I really started to develop an affinity for the administrative work. I was, among many of the roles, I was the president of the faculty union when I was in that department. And I heard that the college was hiring a dean, brand new role, and that they had carved the role out for someone that the college, that the faculty didn't have a really good relationship with. So I decided we needed to disrupt the system, and I encouraged all the faculty to apply for the dean position. And I felt like a hypocrite if I didn't throw my hat in the ring too. So I threw my hat in the ring, and I became a finalist in the role. And the president actually called me into the office one day and said, "Are you serious that you're applying for this position, or are you trying to embarrass me?" And I said, "No, I'm serious about this." So she offered the job to me. I served in that role for 18 months, in overseeing the Freehold campus, which for anybody who doesn't know, Brookdale, the Freehold campus serves about 3,000 students. So it's a pretty significant size population, some larger than some colleges in New Jersey. But after 18 months, the president said, "I want you back here on the main campus." And she pulled me into the role of the vice president of student affairs. We were going through a pretty traumatic time at the college where we were really struggling financially, and we had to lay off a lot of people. So I came back to the main campus when we were just on the heels of laying off 180, well, we eliminated 180 positions, which is really traumatic time for the college. I served as the vice president for 2 years, and then the president of the college left. I threw my hat in the ring to become interim president, and then I went through a national search and became president of the college. So that's the trajectory. By the way, whenever I tell my kids that story, whenever they hear me speak, I'm reminded that I have two daughters, and when my firstborn daughter was about 7 years old, she heard me talking. And afterward, I said to her, "What did you learn about Dad today?" And she said, "Well, first, I learned you're really old, and you can't hold down a job." And I thought, of course, I thought that was hysterical. So, and it must be true because it's been a series of one job after the other. But, all along the way, obviously, I learned different perspectives that have helped me to be fairly successful in the role that I'm in now.
Mentor for you along the way? Have you had some mentors that have served you well?
In every position, I've had multiple mentors. So one of my more significant mentors was another counselor. She was not officially my mentor, but I think I was probably in the office for maybe 24 hours when she pulled me aside and said, "You're coming to a meeting with me." And I thought I was just going to sit in the office and counsel all day long, but she said, no, you've got to come to be a part of our college-wide governance system. So we've got a system of many committees here. And I became involved very quickly because she encouraged me to. And then I had another mentor who worked within the college-wide governance system, who recommended that I become a chair of a committee, and then I became vice chair of the whole system, and then chair of the whole system. So along the way, there have been those encouraging people in every single role. And in my current role, I have many mentors, many other college presidents in New Jersey, outside of New Jersey, people who are CEOs of various organizations. I like to learn from people who are doing this work outside of higher ed. So yeah, I've got a lot of mentors, and it's been one of the most important things in my career for sure.
So you didn't go to community college. You went to Stockton, you said, right? And I did go to community college myself, and I don't think that I necessarily appreciated it. I'm being honest, but I'm the most honest on my own podcast here. I don't think I necessarily appreciated it as much, right? Because I had the dreams of the bigger college that I wanted to go to. That was the 4-year college. That was, the prestige and all of that kind of stuff. But now when I look back, I wish I had a whole different view. And my kids, although they did not do that route either, I did try to push them in that route because I see such greatness in the community college system. And so for those listening, and that may have that same thought process, it's an unfortunate thought process for those who think you have to go off to that 4-year right away, and you may not be ready. And then you change and so many people I know have done this, change their direction 2 or 3 times after they've declared a major. Tell people about the community college system and the importance of it. It's such a beautiful system, and I really wish more people would take advantage of it.
I absolutely will, Jody. I want to take a step back for just a minute, though. And I do believe that there is a place for students to go directly on to 4-year universities. I also believe that not every student needs to go to college. There are lots of vocational programs out there that will train people to go right into careers where many of our students want to work with their hands, and they're not really interested in being inside of a classroom learning in that environment. So I think one of the things we have to do is look at what the needs of the student are, and what their skills are, and also not for us to be imposing our values on them. Also, we've got a lot of models that we use that will form the basis for our advising for our kids, as well as for neighbors and for friends' kids, where we'll say, you've got to go away to this college and major in this thing because that's going to make you the most successful. But we're not listening to what it is that the student wants. So I will tell you about the beauty of community college, because it does fill a really amazing space, a number of different reasons. Community colleges are 2-year colleges. For those of you who aren't really much aware of community colleges, they are embedded within their communities. So they are not only higher education institutions that provide at least the first 2 years of a bachelor's degree. And that first 2 years is an associate's degree. So at least the first 2 years of a bachelor's degree, or an associate's degree that provides a pathway into a career. So for example, in nursing, an RN, they might only need to have the associate's degree and then the license, and they can go directly to work as nurses. They don't have to get the full bachelor's degree. Automotive technicians, often they don't need to have more than the associate's degree to find really meaningful, well-paying work. So they'll do the associate's degree and then move on into the career. So we've got one pathway which goes on to 4-year universities where people can earn bachelor's degrees and beyond. If you're going to be an attorney, you have to follow that pathway. You're going to be a doctor, you got to go that way. And then there's the workforce mission, which is 2 years of education and then directly on into work. Nursing, automotive technicians, cybersecurity professionals, right? Some business tech, music tech, a lot of different programs that people can go directly into the workforce. But then there's also the community service aspect. We provide community service and education beyond what the four-year university system does in the United States. So we will provide a significant amount of English as a second language, adult basic education to lead to the GED, short workforce training programs. If a person wants to be a certified nurse's aide or a home health aide, they want to learn to be a CDL, a truck driver, get the CDL. They can do a short workforce training program in order for them to get what it is that they want and need and not have to go through a structured, full academic program that's going to take them 2 years. And then we also are heavily invested in community organizations. So we do a lot of work in the economic mobility space where we connect with nonprofits, we connect with the food banks, mental health organizations, social service organizations, so that we can make sure that there are pathways for people who may not be citizens, for them to be able to access services, or for those that might be in a significant need. They are not getting their basic skills, their basic needs met. They can often get that through the community college while they're pursuing their academic and career pathway. That makes it very, very different from the four-year university space, because the community colleges are invested in their communities.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm glad you were able to share that some of the full scope, because it's so intricate. I was talking to someone the other day saying, I really wish when we're kids, instead of we're asked, what are you going to be when you grow up, right? Where everybody asks that, what do you want to be when you grow up? A lot of times people will say, especially if you talk about certain industries, they'll say, oh, no, don't go into that because there's not enough money in that, or don't go into this. But we don't always talk about, well, what are you passionate about? And how can we hone that so that you can make a living from that specific industry or whatever it is that you want to do? You mentioned music industry. A lot of parents get nervous when you talk about the arts, right? Because they're like, well, how are you going to make a living doing that? So, what is your advice on that? Especially when, maybe there's a parent out there that's right now, they have a student in high school and the child's not really sure where they're going to go and what they're going to do. What advice do you have for that parent to give to their child?
I'll start with what we hear from industry professionals. We bring together industry professionals and advisory boards, and they'll come and talk to us about what are they seeing that we need to be doing a better job of in the community college, right? And what I hear over and over again from folks who hire our graduates, and it's not just Brookdale graduates, it's the graduates of, if you look at national surveys, it's the graduates of colleges across the country. The most important skills are communication, teamwork, critical thinking skills, problem solving. They have to be able to speak, they have to be able to write, they have to be able to work together in a team. Okay, so and Jody, I'm sure as in your role, this is true. If we just produce people with degrees that don't have those essential skills, they're not going to make it in any industry.
Great, totally 100%.
So that's the most important thing to be focused on is where are you going to be picking up those skills? Teamwork, communication skills, critical thinking, problem solving, right? Because otherwise it doesn't matter what you think you're going to do if you don't pick those skills up. Once a person has acquired those skills, they can more easily, the word pivot is way overused since COVID, but I'll use it here. But you can far more easily pivot in your career. They say that most people change, I think it's 7 or 8 times, change their careers 7 to 8 times, right? Over the course of their lifetime. We are not in the Industrial Revolution anymore, where people are getting one job and they stay in that job for their entire lifetime. And if they become a supervisor, that's like a huge win. But they stay with the same organization, they stay in the same job. That just doesn't happen anymore. So the most important thing is to develop those essential skills so that they can move in between jobs when, and that's not a failure. If you major in pre-med and you end up working in the pharmaceutical industry where you're educating doctors about how to use prosthetic limbs, you're a success.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you majored in. You picked up those essential skills and you can take that into a career and become successful with it. And we know that most of the jobs that are graduates, for those that are in high school right now, by the time they graduate from college, the jobs that they're getting, most of those jobs don't exist right now. So in a world where we know that things are moving so rapidly, it's most important to pick up the essential skills. So don't be afraid of majoring in English or theater or arts, right? Those are some of the
Hmm.
majors that you're going to get most of those essential skills within those fields. And if you
Yeah.
think that that means that they can't become an attorney or the president of a college, that's not, that thinking is not correct. The essential skills are what's going to help them to find their ultimate destination in their career.
My daughter started out as an opera major. That was her major. And now she's just right out of college, literally just graduated. And she has her music education degree because she wanted to have that as well. And now she's teaching right out of school. She's the head teacher for music education for a school that does boarding over in Maryland. And she does pre-K all the way to fifth grade. So you just don't know that when we went all looking, it was like, I'm going to be an opera major. I'm going to sing. I want to go to the Met. And maybe eventually she will, but she's using her skills to teach other young artists to use their voice. So,
Absolutely. And one thing that I'll hear people say, I don't really hear as much now, but I have in the past heard people say that they don't know what they spent all that money for in college if their kid just went on and did something that they didn't major in. That's actually missing the mark. The reason for why your son or daughter was able to get into that job and is successful has everything to do with what they learned through that program. It doesn't mean that they have to have a job in what they're majoring in.
I love that. And because I have heard that from other parents at times, and my kids are now 26 and 22. So I've heard that over the years. And I agree with you 100%. Every step that we take leads us to another space, and we take the education from where we came from and we bring it with us, so that and all the messages and all the people too, right, all the people we've met along the way. So what are some of the most important and passionate things that you're about in the position you're in right now, because you have such a gamut of things that you are, not only are you president of the college, you're involved in so much in the community as well. I don't know how you have time to breathe. And I know you're passionate about so many things. So share with us, what are some of those passions in the role that you're in right now?
Well, one of the fortunate things about being in this role is that I have a really incredible team, and their focus is on the aspect of the college that they oversee. So I have an incredible provost who oversees everything academic affairs. I have a person who's responsible for doing grant writing and fundraising, and she does an incredible job at that and brings me in at the times when I need to be. But where I think I spend the most time and what I'm passionate about is identifying where the system needs to be disrupted and trying to disrupt it in a way that doesn't break the system, right? We need to recognize that there's a lot of psychological safety in the status quo, right? So I get it. But at the same time, we have to recognize where we're not doing a good enough job. So let's tear apart our data. Let's look at what groups of students are not succeeding, where there's a gap. They're not succeeding at the same rate as other students. So I'm passionate about that. Let's look at the areas where where are the weakest links and where could we be doing better? And then so much of the work that we're doing out in the community is really where my heart really lies in those areas, because we're talking about students where members of the community have often been forgotten, members of the community that there's a reputation that higher education just isn't for me. Our higher education can't work for me because we haven't done a good enough job of making sure that people have access. So we've got a significant opioid problem in our country. So we went and formed a relationship with Madawan Aberdeen Regional School District and a group called Write Your Life, where we developed the Keys Academy Recovery High School to help kids who are addicted while they're in high school to get out of the environment that may be triggering for them and to move them onto the college environment where they can earn their high school diploma in a healthier environment. And we're seeing incredible success with the students who are going through that program. Or the Achieve Academy for adults with autism. For many people going through the public school system, they hit the age of 21 and then all their services cut off. They have nothing. Their families don't know what to do. So we started the Achieve Academy for adults with autism to give another opportunity for people to continue to learn and to develop skills beyond age 21. And it goes on and on and on. The work that we're doing, the Caroline Huber Holistic Wellness Center, how we're connecting the community to the campus through wellness programming. All those things are about helping those that don't have the means, who didn't think that higher education was for them, and finding the pathways to break that down and whatever those obstacles are, and provide them with an opportunity so that they can be successful.
I just had something came to me while you were talking about that. And you were talking about, I remember earlier in the interview, you mentioned how you had, a health issue that kind of held you back and didn't give you a voice, right? You kind of held your voice back, right? Judgment is a terrible, terrible thing that we all experience in fear of judgment. Did that young David ever think that you'd be sharing your voice in such a huge way now, so many years later?
No, you know that saying that most people would rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy?
Mm-hmm.
You know that saying. So most people, and I fell in that group, that I would rather die than get up and speak in front of people. I had a pretty incredible social anxiety as a younger person, as a teenager. And as a matter of fact, even when I started working here at the college, if it wasn't for a particular mentor of mine who forced me out of that and put me in front of a classroom where I was responsible for leading some of her classes, I may not have found that voice, or might have taken a whole lot longer. So there is no doubt that who I am today is incredibly informed by who I was then. And no, there's no way as a teenager I would have thought that I would be serving in a role like this.
I had a lot of that social anxiety. I had something happen to me when I was a kid too. And so I relate so much when you told me a little bit about your story when we talked previously, relate so much to what you're saying because I was forced, I had the luck of having a role that put me in front of a lot of people. And there was this one mentor, Tony Hooper, who was the executive senior vice president of Bristol Myers Squibb. And I love giving him a shout because without him, I had this role, but I was nervous. I was petrified to talk in front of people. I was like, why did I take this job? What is wrong with me? I was the one who hid under the desk. Don't call on me. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. And now on a podcast, running a podcast. And it's incredible for those who think where they are right now, they're stuck. Nobody's ever really truly stuck unless you truly believe that and you don't stay open. What advice in that aspect would you give to someone?
Well, I think that sometimes listening to those who have had other experiences, right? If you are going through that, recognizing that there's still very much a stigma about, I don't want to go so far as to say that that is a mental health issue, but for anybody who's dealing with a significant mental health issue, there's still a stigma associated with that. So we want to hold it back and not let everybody know that we might have that thing that's going on, but recognize that, here, I am a person who dealt with social anxiety. I dealt with a significant obsessive compulsive disorder, had panic attacks when I was young. And look, if I could make it into this, there's nothing special about me. If I could make it into this role, and it's only been from accepting the help of people along the way, and in the encouragement of people along the way, it's only because of that I'm sitting here right now in this role. So if I could ever help others that are going through that, I would welcome. Reach out to me. As I said earlier, too few people take me up on that. Reach out. I am willing to talk with you, and there are so many other people who are willing to do the same. So I think it's, just paying attention to others who are sharing their stories and talking about what they went through and recognizing you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you, right?
Right. Right. You have such empathy and you share your vulnerability and I give you so much credit for that because I think that a lot of times that we forget, not, certain people do, not a lot of, not everybody, but we forget, right? Where we've started, where we came from. We get caught up in the judgment of not wanting to share those types of things because of the fact that we don't like when people say things about us. Everybody wants to be liked and regarded highly. And so I love the vulnerability and I'm all about that. I do the same thing in sharing. I never finished I never graduated. And that was such a huge gremlin, as we talked about the gremlins when we first started this conversation. I was having computer issues, and that was a huge gremlin for me. So vulnerability is so important because that's how people relate to each other, right? We hear, "Oh, me too," when and yeah, I feel that way too. So those things are so important. David, what would you say you would like your legacy to be? What would you like? What would you like that to be remembered? How would you like to be remembered
That's a
once you
really
leave
tough,
this role?
it's a tough one for me because it's never really about me. It's not about my legacy here at the college, but it's if I could talk about what I would like to see in the aftermath, right? We always want to leave institutions better than we found them. And so if I could, specifically for Brookdale, but there is a larger higher education discussion here. Specifically for Brookdale, if I could help for the college to have a better understanding of what it what it means to be poor and how that presents obstacles, that we perpetuate a system that presents those obstacles to individuals so that they can't finish, right? What does it mean to have a disability, intellectual, physical, mental? And how do we perpetuate a system that presents obstacles that does not allow them to finish? So in other words, I want us to be able to create a better, more equitable system that allows for more people, not just those who would have succeeded even if it wasn't for us, but the people who really need us. I want this institution to be more empathic, more equitable, and producing more transparent outcomes that are addressing the needs of the community that really needs community college. And that is while I say that about Brookdale, I really feel that about all of higher education because we as a sector do not do a good enough job. People who come to us and they succeed, they would have crossed that stage if they went to another college. They would be successful even if it wasn't for us. But what about those people who aren't making it to the finish line? We need to do a better job of addressing their needs.
Yeah. And I think that the college is so lucky to have you and what you're sharing with those two with your all of your employees and your staff. I mean, coming at when you're at the top and sharing that empathy and trying to make the community even better and feel like they're together as one whole community as opposed to everybody separated and segregated. I think it's such a beautiful thing. Before we go, and I could talk to you for like 2 hours, if not more. What is the message you want everybody to leave with knowing about you and the universe and the college?
So specifically about me, it's I think I have had I've had things that I've had to personally overcome in order to become to obviously get into this role and there isn't anybody out there that's listening or watching this that couldn't be doing the same thing that I am. So there is nothing special here, right? The but about the college itself, um, community college it's not just an option that you should be considering if you don't have the means to go on to a 4-year university. It's not just the option that you should be looking at if you or your son or daughter did not do well academically, and this is a place to come and repair your transcript. It's not just the place where you come to if you went away and realized I'm not ready to go away, so I'm going to go to my local community college. There are incredible assets that your community colleges have, Brookdale included, but all of our community colleges across the state have, that are, we are here to help you get to where you want to be. We say, here we'll get you there. Right. And what we mean is that we are going to provide every resource that we can. We are going to fight and kick and scream and scratch alongside of you to get you to the place where you want to be. And really, these community colleges are engines of transformation for so many people. So I would like for your audience to be able to hear that. Look at the community colleges and what they do. Don't perpetuate the stigma. Don't buy into the belief that they're just 13th grade kind of, and toss it aside. They are doing incredible work in your community, and they really should be held up in high regard for that.
How do people find out more about Brookdale Community College?
Well, they would go to the website, www.brookdalecc.edu. brookdalecc.edu. And please come visit us. Once you come onto the campus, you'll find out, I call it Brookdale magic. Once you see the Brookdale magic, you're not going to want to leave.
I agree. I've been on many times, and I'm pleased to be doing a lot more work with you and the organization. So I think it's a fabulous and wonderful organization and wonderful college. So thank you so much, David, for being on and being a guest. Like I said, I could talk to you for hours. And any last minute thoughts before we go?
I do have last minute thoughts. Thank you, Jody, for what you're doing here, for what you do in your other professional world. I could also sit here and talk with you for hours. I don't know if your listeners would want to listen to me drone on for hours, but I'm always happy to talk with you and anyone else who anything that I said might connect with. You can always feel free to reach out to me. If you go to the college's website, you'll find me in the directory, and always feel free to reach out.
That's wonderful. Thank you for being so amenable to have people reaching out to you. I think that's incredible with your schedule. So thank you for that. And yes, I hope you'll come back. Anything that you can think of that you think would be a really great topic for our audience. I love that. So, and they love that too. And I want to thank you, Dr. David Stout, for being a part of the podcast Changemakers, and you'll be part of the forum too. So that's exciting as well. So thank you for that.
Very excited about that. Everybody needs to tune in for that, for sure.
Yeah, coming very soon, the date and time and everything for our 2025 forum. And I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what small step or large step are you going to take to get yourself closer to your goals? Again, thanks, David, for your time. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Don't forget, you can watch this episode on the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel, stream it on all major platforms, and stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day, Live It. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at todayisthedayliveit.com to stay updated on all things Changemakers. A huge thank you again to the listeners from over 864 cities worldwide. Again, we see you, we appreciate you, and we're so grateful for your support. Keep sharing the episodes that resonate with you, because together we are truly creating a global ripple effect of change. So many new things are coming up for Today's the Day Changemakers, and I can't wait to share them with you soon. So join our newsletter, share your email with us, and we will update you as things continue to grow and change, and we continue to create this global ripple effect. Thank you. Have a great week, everyone.